And welcome back to This Week. Time now to get the views of our media and political experts, Nashville attorney and Democratic political activist Larry Woods, and syndicated conservative talk show host Steve Gill. Welcome, guys. Because of our taping schedule, we should note that the interview with Senator Ketron was taped a day before the decision. We now know the decision by GM. The car is going to be built in Michigan, not Springhill, and it's bad news for Springhill.
Well, you got 2,500 jobs that are lost there, and then you add in the folks who are in the parts suppliers around the community, the other businesses that depend on those jobs for their businesses, whether it's the local McDonald's, the real estate business. It is a devastating hit to Springhill.
Bad news for Tennessee in general. Obviously, the Tennessee economy suffers. Obviously, all those workers in Springhill suffer. I would hope the good news about Nissan, $1.6 billion, will help many of those workers in terms of the possibility of new jobs for them.
That's a huge plus. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the folks in Springhill today, they're trying to put a positive spin on this, as you know they would see, and saying that if this doesn't happen, maybe down the road something else will happen. Maybe Saturn will be built there again. Maybe the Hummers will be built there again. But those are all big question marks where there's no timetable.
You know, you've almost got a new Mason-Dixon line forming where the old auto industry that's failing is hunkering down in Ohio and Michigan, and the new thriving auto industry, powered by the Nissans, the Toyotas, the Volkswagens, are continuing to locate in the South and in Tennessee in particular. I think this plant in Springhill is prime for Volkswagen to add a different model and put it there, for Penske to maybe move the Saturn brand there, or some of these other foreign auto dealers around the world to decide they want to make their vehicles here in Tennessee, just like other companies have done. Tennessee is still on the cutting edge of being the place to make cars.
Can't disagree with that. That Springhill plant's a beauty. It's a gem, a prize. But our future in automotive needs to be the Nissans, the Toyotas, the Volkswagens. GM's going to be a generation coming back.
If GM doesn't build a car there, if someone else builds a car there, is the UAW gone?
I think UAW's gone under any of those, in Springhill, under any of those scenarios. I hate to say it, they're my friends. I hope they get these new jobs, but the union itself and their strength in Springhill, I think, is gone.
I don't think you're going to see the Nissan, Toyota, or maybe Volkswagen people saying, boy, we sure want some of those UAW guys to come in and try to unionize our plants.
Speaking of Nissan, a huge announcement, $1.6 billion loan that Nissan has taken to produce electric cars and the batteries to run them. This is the future, and Nissan wants to be on the cutting edge, and those jobs are going to be in Rutherford County and in the surrounding areas.
We need to all, at the end of this program, go out and buy real estate in Rutherford County. You'll be rich today. It's great news.
It is great news, and I think that part of the good news is that it is that investment for the future. Unlike the loans that we heard about to Chrysler and to GM, this money actually has a good chance of being paid back because it's cutting-edge technology of the future, not keeping companies afloat that really don't have a plan to do so.
What does this say about the state economy? Is it a wash, or is this such a project, such a big project, it will actually overcome what's happening in Springhill?
This is a huge plus. Much higher order of magnitude than Springhill. Great generator stimulus effect. The $1.6 billion really says the Tennessee economy ought to be booming by this time next year.
But it is a year or two away before we see the impact,
right.
And we've seen Tennessee's economy, like the rest of the nation, see the unemployment rate spike up. The president himself acknowledging that the national rate is likely to bop past 10%, maybe up to 11%. We've got some counties in Tennessee that are already at 14, 15%. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
This week on ABC, President Obama held a town hall meeting on his health care reform plan. His outline during the program basically was that he wants this to be portable and he wants you to have your choice of physicians. Beyond that, specifics are still kind of edgy. We don't really know a lot about the details yet.
Well, that was on the Al Barak channel right here on ABC, where even defenders say, look, it was ridiculous to let it be a one-sided story. But even with that, the president didn't have answers for the tough questions that he was given, including when he was asked himself, what about you? Are you going to continue to pursue an elitist, I get to pick my doctor while the rest of y'all don't? And he had no answer to that. Until he can answer that and other questions better, this plan should go nowhere.
We've got one of the greatest health care systems in the history of the world. The problem is it's got some major defects and major omissions. Lots of kids and lots of pre-existing illness. People can't get decent, reasonable coverage. The federal government's got to step in and do something about that. We can't just ignore those defects. Having said that, however, healthcare, as we three all know, has been a quagmire for every president and every senator that's reached out and tried to fix it. I don't think the Obama team's gotten to the point yet where they've got a winning formula on health care.
The biggest problem, and I say as a lawyer here, they did not even touch on the issue of tort reform. And the president talked at length about the duplicative tests, the needless tests that are run. A lot of that is defensive medicine. A lot of it is because some trial lawyer is going to sue you. There is not even on the table any discussion of dealing with that because the trial lawyers put so much money into his pockets.
This is great mythology by my Republican friends. In Tennessee, the last 5 years, there have been 6 of the kind of trial lawsuit verdicts that they criticize. Maybe it should have been 1 instead of 6, but this is not. Trial lawyers are not the problem. Trial lawyers are the solution. If that hospital kills my relative through malpractice and negligence, who am I going to count on to solve that problem for future patients? Talk radio, politics? No, they're not going to solve that problem. Obama needs to solve that problem, and trial lawyers too.
There are legitimate cases, but when somebody's getting sued for the frivolous cases that we see, or when doctors are having to run duplicative tests because they're afraid of getting sued, that's what's the real cost, not the case where somebody is legitimately entitled to recovery. It's those frivolous cases that are out of control.
That's the big question. Is the difference in the details of how this plan is actually going to be implemented, or is the difference really how is it going to be paid for and who's going to pay for it? Is that the real
how it's
answer?
Going to be paid for and who's going to pay for it? If Obama or anybody else can work out a palatable plan for payment that the majority of America accepts, then we'll get a new health care system. But right now, we're not at that point. Saying, for example, that we're going to tax individuals who benefit from health care through their employer, that's not going to be a politically popular, passable position to take.
I'm not taking a pass, but I'll say it's all of it. It's how you pay for it, but it's also a bad system is a bad idea. And if we replicate the government-down system of Britain and Canada, where people are having to flood out of those countries to get quality health care, it's not just the cost. Theirs is free, and it's killing people.
45 seconds to go. South Carolina governor goes AWOL, comes back and admits he had an affair with a friend in Argentina. This is just a bizarre story.
I've been to Argentina. I never had that much fun.
Did you cry when you were there?
If I was him, I would have been crying there and at home.
He should have stayed on the Appalachian Trail if he ever got there. And certainly, as I told you, Bob, he should have made the announcement a day later in the middle of Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson, and nobody would know or care.
John Ensign is the guy that benefited most because it took him off the front pages of the newspaper. But they should apply the same standard. As sad as the Sanford story is, he didn't do anything. In fact, he did a lot less than Bill Clinton did, where the same media that is hounding Sanford covered up.
Steve Gill, Larry Woods, appreciate your insight. Stay with us. This week continues in a moment.